only when he sees that thing dead. The Count's territory starts breaking and cracking, and only 5 hours are left until it breaks down. More people gather around the Count's territory rapture, and a streamer by the name of Park Huigang welcomes his viewers back to his channel, which exudes determination. He is currently in the snowy mountains of Russia, as the Count's territory has reached a huge 70% destruction progress. So, there are less than 5 hours until the rupture breaks out. The time is exactly 3:48 a.m., and there are tons of guilds here, despite how early it is. He pulls out a notebook and notes that he has some interesting points to make, but the chat is not that impressed, and they mostly diss him. The grind never stops, however, so he explains that this time, the Count's territory only has 30 entrances, way less than the previous rapture, which had 200. And since there are so few entrances, various guilds decided to go into one rupture at once. The XP and loot is distributed based on the contribution rate, however, so guilds need to balance each other in order for both to prosper. The chat continues to diss him like usual, since they probably have nothing better to do, but that's when they spot Cheolman behind him, so Huigang turns around to see him, and indeed, it is. Cheolman greets his team, and Taemin asks how the rupture entrance situation is. Cheolman explains that he looked into it thoroughly, and found out that competition is basically inevitable, since there are so little entrances. Taemin notes that they are fine with anything, as long as they are not going against Shining, that is. Cheolman tells him no to worry about them, as they went far north, because they want to go against the unified Under Heaven Guild. Taemin is surprised, as that is the guild which holds the second rank, and Huigang's chat begin talking about how the first and second guild are duking it out. Cheolman says that Berserker is with Second Son and Bohemian, which makes Taemin think that they are better safe than sorry that way, but they will not gain much look or experience. Huigang's chat slowly disappears in front of him, as the people are going to watch other streams, so he tries pleading with them, but nobody is really listening at this point. Suddenly, someone arrives near them, and Taemin's face contorts into a wicked smile, and he shakes while asking what they are doing here. This is the 4th ranking guild, Inazuma. They guild master, Hisagi Kazuma, who is level 376, and holds 6th place in the player rankings, says that this must be a coincidence, as the lowly Gaon guild is standing right in front of the rupture he wants to enter. Huigang is surprised that Inazuma is here, and his chat is even more intrigued right now. Taemin notes that they were very insistent on not placing a branch of their guild in Korea, so their plane must have just landed, right? Kazuma laughs it off, and explains that it's much better and economical to take the place to Russian, than set up a whole branch in Korea. Taemin asks if he's really challenging them right now, and Kazuma notes that isn't worth anything of value, so the world won't lose anything if they eliminate them. The guilds both start to exert their power, and get ready to attack at a moment's notice. Huigang is the first to catch this in action, and thinks that if he can record all of it, he just might make a fortune. That's when countless other streamers and reporters sweep besides him, and rush to see Gaon and Inazuma in action. They rush in, and ask tons of questions, with no real rhyme or reason, while Huigang just watches from behind, as that is the only thing he can do right now. Cheolman explains that he knows how he feels about Inazuma, but the destruction progress of the Rapture is their biggest issue now, so if 2 guilds compete, everybody will lose, and there isn't enough time for that. Suddenly, the streamers around start saying that Inazuma is better than Gaon, as it's falling behind in 5th place. There is also the rivalry between the guild masters, which is quite sad, as Kazuma is 6th place, while Taemin is a lowly 11th. All of these comments sting Cheolman like bees, and they are both extremely riled up now, and ready to go. Cheolman explains that they were here first, so naturally, it will not look good if they give up this space. He gestures Taemin to rip them apart quite strangely, who happily obliges. That is how Gaon and Inazuma went into the Easter rupture at the same time. The news get wind of this, and report about their rivalry, and how their respective rankings and nationalities are bringing a lot of attention to the situation. At the northernmost rupture are the 1st and 2nd ranking guilds, Shining and Unified Under Heaven. In the southern rupture, the 30th ranked guild, Berserker, the 7th ranked guild, Second Son, and the 3rd rank, Bohemia, all went in together. The destruction progress has already reached a dangerous 80%, so this is naturally causing fear and anxiety to be felt throughout the world. While inside of the Count's territory, Grandfell is having some tea, but the rupture he went through is unknown. He thinks that, The most useful thing he got from the last rupture is a fact that running out of mana is extremely dangerous, so he had to figure out a way to use mana more efficiently during battle. The result is this: magic designed from the alchemy skill, in which he shapes things into the stuff he wants. At first, to test things out, he got some rocks and changed them into a teacup and table. However, the more complex decor and detail he wanted, the more mana he had to spend, so it is not as efficient to use in battle. There is also one more thing he realized while pondering this issue. Suddenly, a few soldiers of the Count arrive, which are all level 300. Grandfell puts his hand forwards and notes that if this is all the authority the Count gave them, it is quite pathetic, to say the least. A few rock formations rise above the soldiers, and Grandfell demands they turn back into dust. He uses the Restore to Original State skill and crushes all of them. With this skill, almost no mana is used, and Grandfell notes that this best classified as reversal magic, so he will name it just that. Lee laments the cringy name, but lets it go for now. Meanwhile, in the deepest part of the territory, a few soldiers are waiting for victims, but they seem to be the victims, as Taemin jumps on one and instantly kills it. The others see this and jump on him, but this makes him smile, and he uses an extremely wide swing to hit all of them at once. Afterwards, his guild also arrives, but Taemin thinks that something is amiss here, as he has only killed 10 monsters, which is very few for how deep they are. One of the guild members reports back and notes that Inazuma is around the same state as them. They haven't killed much. They entered the same rupture, sure, but they went completely different ways, so how does any of this make sense? Suddenly, Inazuma pops up, and Kazuma notes that it's quite peaceful around here, which he finds to be boring. Taemin asks why he thinks they are friends all of a sudden, and they get into each other's faces. Kazuma notes that he doesn't really get why he hates him so much. It makes him want to kill him. Taemin tries to say something, but Cheolman contacts him over earpiece and notes that he has done the dungeon analysis and needs to get out of the square, as that place will be swarmed soon. They don't get to, however, as the earth rumbles, and Taemin's expression changes. The Count's knights arrive, which are all level 350. Taemin demands everyone get ready to fight, and Kazuma also draws his weapon, as this is not the time to bicker around like they usually do. Taemin thinks that cavalry has much more destructive power than average terrain units, so even if all of their tankers combined go in front, they would suffer mortal injuries. So what is he supposed to do in a situation like this? Kazuma says that he doesn't like this idea at all, but he asks him to take his back, while focuses on the front. Slowly but surely, the enemies surround them, and there is nothing they can do. Cheolman tells Taemin that this situation is too dangerous, as even the unified Under Heaven Guild suffered extreme casualties from a single cavalry ambush. They should not fight, and lure them somewhere where they can't come in all at once. Taemin thinks that he would like to retreat, but that seems impossible right now. Suddenly the earth starts cracking beneath them, and large pillars eliminate most of the cavalry and block the rest. They are all extremely surprised by this, and wonder who could have saved them in this manner. That's when Grandfell shows himself, and Cheolman is extremely shocked to see him. He tells Taemin that this is the man they wanted to recruit, and who saved their lives, Grandfell. Huigang is still streaming, and is on Gaon's tail inside of the rupture, despite how dangerous that is. While he tracks them down, his 12 viewers continue to diss him, with many saying that a lot of streamers are already on Gaon, so he should do something more interesting. He tells them that he will try to go after the Inazuma Guild and see what he can dig up, but that's when he hears a large explosion, and his chat was very surprised by it. Someone donates 4,001 for him to check it out, so he gets going as fast as he can. The guild masters of both guilds are extremely surprised, as there are stone pillars all over the battlefield. Kazuma looks at Grandfell and wonders just what type of monster this is, for him to summon all of that without chanting a single spell. Kazuma thinks that he must have extreme amounts of mana, and also finds his attire quite weird, considering all of this place is basically a battlefield. Just who is this guy? Suddenly, one of his subordinates tells everyone that knights have started to appear between the pillars. However, Taemin sees this as an opportunity. The stone pillars are slowing down the horses significantly, so this is the perfect opportunity to strike. He explains that he will have to thank him later, as he has a few horses to butcher. He also activates his Berserk skill, which increases his attack damage by a ton and dulls the damage he receives. He jumps high into the air and thinks that with these pillars advantaging him, this battle is won. He cuts one of the horsemen in two, and the impact of the attack permeates throughout, also damaging the others. Kazuma sees this as an opportunity to shine, so he tells his guild to charge forwards. They do so, and Huigang is glad that he caught all of this, and wonders who this amazing mage is, while his view count rises to 132. They also observe Grandfell using reversal magic, as he crushes two horsemen. Huigang and the chat can only stare in awe, as they find it hard to believe what just happened, but it is real. Grandfell summons a dagger, and notices that its durability is pretty high, but he wouldn't want to bring it down. Huigang's chat sees this as him playing with the mob's life. Grandfell thinks that if he interferes with the dagger's mana to change it, and reverse it back to normal right after, the durability shouldn't be affected. This should work, as when he changed the rock into a cup, it had a cup-like durability, and when he changed it back, the rock turned back to normal. If this ability to restore to the original state really bring it back to the original state, like advertised, it's entirely possible. He transforms the dagger into a silver awl and strikes the mob, leveling up in the process. His presumptions seem to have been correct, as the dagger doesn't lose a single durability if he reverts it right after. Lee is glad about this, as now, they won't have to pay for the repair fees, so more money in their pocket. The Gaon Guild congratulates themselves for a job well done, but Taemin is stuck looking at Grandfell, who is enjoying some well-deserved tea. Cholman explains that this is the person they wanted, and Taemin notes that he heard him earlier. Now that he saw him in action, he wants him even more, and doesn't want to let other guilds sink their teeth into him, especially since Inazuma also saw what he is capable of. They will offer him a 10-0 deal, while also throwing something as a bonus. After some thinking, Huigang finds the courage to come next to Grandfell and asks if he is willing to do an interview. Huigang's viewership skyrocketed to 68,000, and his chat starts simping for Grandfell. That's when members from the Inazuma Guild start swarming him and ask if he would like to join their guild, as he is quite the amazing individual. Taemin pushes around them and offers Grandfell a handshake while introducing himself. He also texted him recently about joining their guild, so maybe he knows him already. Grandfell looks him dead in the eyes and notes that there is not a single shred of formality to be found around here. So, he will not be taking any questions, as he has more important matters to attend to. The chat explodes with comments, as they find it very cool or funny. News about Grandfell go across the internet, and the Shining Guild seem to be very interested in this. They leader, Lox, asks his two subordinates what they think. Camilla notes that she doesn't know anything about magic, as she is an archer, and Dimitri, the 8th rank player, screams that they don't know. He also tells him off, as he is quite popular, so he doesn't know how desperate he is. He barely managed to get this date, but he is in this meeting with him, and missing all of the fun. For what? Just a bastard on a screen? Camilla takes a closer look at him, and notes that he does look cool, so if he is this worried about him, why don't they just scout him? Dimitri notes that it's obvious why, because this bastard of a leader is jealous. Because even though they cleared the Count's family territory first, everyone is talking about that man instead of him. Camilla notes that they are probably just hyping him up like they usually do, and Dimitri agrees, while noting that he can't be this late to a date, so he needs to go already. With that, both him and Camilla leave, letting Lox look at the screen in peace. That's when another member comes behind him and notes that what this man did is like magic, but not really. This is Jesse Heinesi, a level 397, and the 4th ranking player. Lox notes that he never heard her describing something as cool, and she begins analyzing further. She begins smiling, and says that this person is quite interesting, and should be studied further. At the Berserker Guild camp, Leonie is extremely angry that they missed recruiting Grandfell, as the others didn't let her, so now, she is taking her anger out on them. At the Inazuma Guild camp, Kazuma gets a call from someone, who notes that they must bring that silver-haired man to their side, no matter what it takes. In the latest news, the reporter explains that the Count family territory has been cleared successfully. Shining and Unified Under Heaven both fought valiantly for the first place, but eventually, Shining was the victor, and took the first place. The only ruptures left now will be the Count's family fortress, with its destruction rate being at 72% currently. Because of this high risk of a rupture happening, there is a lot of tension within the different base camps. If the fortress rupture really were to fall, they can basically wipe Russia off the map, so the only thing they can do is at least wish them luck and pray for them. Grandfell, after taking a shower, watches the news about him, which describe him as a mysterious player. Many news outlets discuss in length about him, and reaction channels start blowing things out of proportion, like usual. One of the news outlets notes that building so many pillars from just a flick seems impossible to do with current abilities, so they will ask their rupture specialist. He explains that the situation was dire, and if he was a second late to the party, many people would have died there. The player who did all of this knew that the knights were betting on their mobility, so he changed the terrain, and that, combined with his quick thinking, is what saved Gaon and Inazuma. And also, from then on, he just watched, which seems to be his way of being nice to the other guilds, basically saying that it's their time to shine. Grandfell thinks that he was just out of mana at the time, but Lee thinks that it's great they aren't calling him an asshole, like what would usually happen. He also checks the loot they got, as among it is a rare item, the first one he got. This is the necklace imbued with the blood curse, which must be purified in order to bring out its real effect. These items are called devil items, as once the curse is broken, a random effect is unsealed, so basically a gacha item. Most players would throw this away because of the effort they need to put into breaking the curse, but there is another proper way to use a cursed item, with the exorcism ritual skill, which invites a demon into one's head. Lee thinks that this is one of the 2 exclusive demon hunter skills, and it's needed in order to use the item as an offering. The basic affect of the skill is that one can attack a demon without harming the one it possessed, like he did with Cholman. But things change when there is an offering into play, as he can invite a demon into his very consciousness. It's similar to the status abnormality given to humans by demons, although there is the possibility that one can be possessed by the demon if they have a low mental stat. However, if he can fight the demon inside of his head, where it's more advantageous for him, things will be easier. Suddenly he gets a call from Cholman, and Lee thinks that it might be because of how Grandfell basically embarrassed their guildmaster on live television. They don't accept the call, and instead write a message, to maybe clear things out. Grandfell, however, didn't get the memo, so he writes a single word: troublesome. He left out that he doesn't want to be sued, making Cholman and Taemin think that he is ignoring them again. Taemin sighs, as he only wanted to apologize for being informal and offer him a deal. They watch the playback of the news, and see that indeed, things were informal, as everyone tried to talk with him at once. They also see that his eyes were tired, so he was struggling to hold his anger in. This was just because he was tired due to the amount of mana he used. Taemin says that there is nothing they can do now, as the count is more important at the moment. The destruction rate of the rupture rises to 83%. So they need to cut their rest short and go in. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking, and some urgent news start blaring out of every speaker. The Count family fortress rupture has broken down, as it has reached 100% destruction rate in an instant. The base camps are now in disarray, and there are around 200 injured. The United Nations and US are advising Russia to close their borders now, so the players need to evacuate as fast as possible. The Count's fortress pops up into the real world, and Grandfell also arrives, not being that surprised that it collapsed. The others watch him as he goes in alone, and he stops at a statue. He notes that it is quite distasteful, and with that, he is the first man to officially enter the fortress. Grandfell wonders how that old and decrepit vampire dares call this place a fortress. But well, it does fit him, since he is what he is. Lee thinks that Grandfell is saying all of this, solely because the mansion of his family was at least 10 times bigger than this place, which speaks volumes. Suddenly, the eyes of the gargoyle statue start glowing a deep red, which spooks Lee a bit. The statue snaps out of its eternal rest and starts cracking around as it gets ready to attack Grandfell. The other players are as shocked as Lee, and wonder if they should help Grandfell, as he is famous for attacking with a dagger, and if he only has that, he can't hope to win against that stone beast. Or perhaps, since the rupture has fully come out into the real world, should they just run away? The gargoyle attempts to strike Grandfell with all of might, but with only one flick of his fingers, He shatters it into tiny pieces within a split second. The Shining Guild hears the commotion and wonder what that noise is, as it seemed to come from the fortress. Camilla says that this sounded exactly like the noise from the video they watched, about that white-haired guy, and Jesse, probably out of sheer curiosity, starts flying towards that direction. Lox tells her to stop, as they were about to go in anyways, so they should do so together. However, she doesn't listen to a word of his, as she is extremely curious at this point. The other players look at Grandfell in awe, as he defeated that mighty-looking gargoyle in a single attack. Lee notes that it was made out of plain stone, and he's broken too many of those in the past for this to be of any difficulty. Grandfell explains that particular statue was of poor quality, poor texture, material, and creation. They put such a piece of garbage in their garden, like it was something they should be proud of, pathetic creatures. The players start screaming, and with newfound confidence, they charge in, all eager to see what the mansion has to offer. Lee is surprised by their sudden change of heart, and Grandfell spots another quest popping up in front of him. This one is a class quest, and is a sub-quest for the prologue of the counterattack class quest. What it entails is to make the vampires feel fear about being hunted. Lee is puzzled by this quest, and wonders what that even means. But Grandfell gets going instantly, as this is not the time to hesitate about things. Lee urges him to just sit and think about this for a bit. They can't just go to kill it now. And how is he going to make him feel any type of fear? The Count is an ancient vampire, who is level 430, and they are only level 100. Grandfell says only that he is a demon hunter, which enrages Lee, as that has nothing to do with this. Eventually, they arrive at a banquet hall, and Grandfell notices something strange, as the portraits of the Count start to emanate a strange feeling. Sure enough, in another place inside of the mansion, the Gaon Guild is barely standing on its feet, as they are all affected. Kjolman asks Taemin is he okay, who notes that he's fine. He's just a little suffocated. Ever since they entered this hallway, which is full of paintings of the Count, he feels like he is being constantly watched, just like the status abnormalities the demons usually cast. Kjolman knows exactly what this means, that the portraits are connected to the Count directly, so they should burn them as quickly as possible. After they do that, they all feel much better, and Kjolman explains that this is why all of the players that went in first were retreating so fast, because everything in that damned castle is a trap. All of the portraits, statues, and even the interior items, everything is causing abnormalities. It makes perfect sense now, why the Shining Guild didn't enter through the main gate. Taemin thinks that they just have more experience, so it's a given, however, even if his class is Barbarian, which is more equipped to sustain status abnormalities, and he feels so overwhelmed already. How bad will all of this get once they go further in? Grandfell walks around the halls and notes that all of these portraits are utter garbage. How can they eat in here with all of this garbage strewn around the place? They surely have strong stomachs. Lee says that he is too harsh, even if this guy is a vampire. But Grandfell continues nonetheless. The statues around here are the same type of garbage. He now feels bad for the stone that had to be sculpted into something so ugly. And in the first place, why are there so many portraits around here? Now he fully understands why people think that narcissism is a disorder. The whole layout of the castle is also to be laughed at, as there are a bunch of unnecessary forks in the hallways, and also hallways that lead to empty walls. If they really thought themselves of this layout before building the fortress, they must not have a single brain cell in that empty head of theirs. That's when he notices that, throughout his ridicule of this place, he arrived at a stairway, which leads to a pretty large door. This makes Grandfell smile, as judging from the placing and the stench that comes from behind that door, this must be the main area where the Count is situated. Lee is a bit hesitant to charge in, as that place just seems off in every way. But before they can fully go up the stairway, Jessie pops up in front of Grandfell, happy that she finally found him. She explains that she saw his really cool and unique magic. Grandfell just looks at her, and she starts yapping about how curious she was about him, and the skills she uses, while Lee thinks that if she's floating like this without a care in the world, she must have endless amounts of mana. She asks if they can talk about his magic, as she is very curious, but Grandfell explains that she should watch her manners. He puts his hand on her shoulder, pulling her down, and notes that if she wants to be taught something, the bare minimum is to have some manners when asking. Jessie just looks at him, but her usually cherry expression is shattered into fear, as the Count himself has come out of his room. This activates Grandfell's natural enemy skill, and the Count explains that he wondered who woke him up from his restful sleep. But it was just two measly humans. How foolish of them. Jesse thinks that the Count's power is truly overwhelming, and asks Grandfell if he is all right. However, he doesn't hear her, as he is too focused on that stinking vampire. Count, how funny, as he should only be called Ascura. All he is a rather vulgar and vicious vampire. He takes out the necklace he got earlier and uses it as an offering. Today, he will be taught an important lesson for pretending to be of real aristocratic lineage. He activates the skill exorcism ritual, and Lee now gets it. If they do manage to activate the ritual, they could bring Ascura into his consciousness and fight there. So this is what Grandfell meant by saying that he is a vampire hunter, as his head is filled with thoughts about eradicating demons. Will this be okay, however, as Ascura is still level 430, so if things go wrong, they might get possessed. Ascura starts laughing at his necklace, and notes that all of his is quite a pity, in his eyes. He likes his arrogance, but he is still nothing more than a lowly humanoid. Jesse explains that the Count is now absorbing the power he shared with his subordinates. But Lee already knows, and this is very bad. He is already 300 levels above them, but if he were to absorb all of the power he shared with his subordinates, that level gap will become much larger. That's when the necklace breaks, and they are both transported in another place, Grandfell's mind. Ascura wonders where this place really is, but that's when he spots Grandfell, and begins laughing maniacally. This is quite the unique trick, at least for a human, but he can simply destroy him and get out of his foolish mind. He tries to hit Grandfell with a few flaming attacks, and after the smoke clears, he is nowhere to be seen, making Ascura think that he completely annihilated him. Grandfell speaks from another side, and asks if that is really what he thinks of him. Ascura is a bit annoyed that this guy is still alive, and asks how he managed that. Grandfell urges him to watch closely, as the one who died will be presented to him shortly. Ascura watches him with worry in his eyes, but that worry turns into shock, as Grandfell is now standing on a dead version of him. Ascura cannot believe what he is seeing, and in the real world, he starts slashing around with his power. There is no way he died. This is all a mental trick, a measly ruse, trying to make him think of the worst. Jesse wonders what is happening, as that white-haired mage is still, but the Count is going on a rampage. Grandfell mocks him, noting that he seems quite afraid, which makes Ascura scream at him to shut up, while blowing the ceiling up completely. Lee just looks at the night sky as they almost died. Jesse thinks that he predicted the attack was going to miss. That is why he is so relaxed, right? Truly, an amazing individual. Lee thinks that they didn't move because there was literally no time to react, and Grandfell uses the skill exorcism ritual once again. This skill allows the user to attack only the demon, should that particular demon be in possession of a human. However, there is an entirely different effect should the user use an offering. That effect is to forcibly invite the demon into the consciousness of the demon hunter. Whoever wins in this situation depends solely on one's mental fortitude. Ascura tries to attack him with some bats, as he is extremely scared. But this is only natural, as there is no way Grandfell would be affected by something like a lowly demon. Jesse just watches in awe, as this is truly an unbelievable sight. Just what did he do to the Count? He is screaming like a maniac, and trying to attack in completely random places, while running away in utter fear. Ascura tries to deny all of these visions, but eventually, he is afflicted with fear, and Jesse finds that what he is going through right now resembles what demons afflict humans with. With this, Grandfell completes the quest to scare him to death, so all that is left is to take care of him. Jesse starts to ask countless questions, like how he did it, and what magic type it is, but he ignores her and strikes Ascura as to end him once and for all. But he stops, as that attack basically did no damage. He tells Jesse to kill him, making her ask why, as he was the one who did everything, so why should she be the one to do it? He can certainly do it on his own, so why? Grandfell looks in the other direction from the shame, and Lee starts cringing hard, pleading with Jesse to catch on already, as this is too much for his poor heart. She seems to have gotten something, noting that she was the one who asked for his teachings. So now, he is basically trying to tell her that if she becomes stronger, she can learn that new magic on her own, isn't that right? She creates a few runes next to Ascura, and moments later, a large beam destroys him, which surprises Lee quite a bit. With that, the distribution rate is calculated, and he also receives tons of levels. Jesse crouches down and looks at what remains of the count, a bunch of ashes. Lee thinks that, even if that guy was weakened, she still basically one-shot a level 430 demon in a single attack. Is this really the power of a high-ranking player? Jesse, out of simple curiosity, starts picking up some of the ash and eating it, which shocks Lee, but not Grandfell, who is looking at something else. The system congratulates him on completing the quest and gives him another class quest. This class quest is called Brewing, and tells him that with the prologue out of the way, now he is the only beacon of light in this world, full of demons and evil. The Shining Guild arrives at the scene and asks what she did. Did she defeat the Count, as all of their status abnormalities have seemingly disappeared? She tries to say something, but they also spot Grandfell, and she starts looking at him. She explains that she is not very familiar with manners, but she will try her utmost to hold them. She introduces herself to Grandfell as Jesse Hynesi, and also asks Grandfell for his name, if it's not too rude to ask. The guild watches, and waits eagerly for a response. In a show of complete symbiosis, Grandfell and Lee have the same thoughts. This girl does have bad manners, but she is willing to change and learn, which can't be said for a lot of people. So, she will reward her with his name, their name. He is Lee Hoyeol. In an apartment complex, a woman is preparing some food while her daughter watches the news, which still talks about Lee and his exploits. The daughter recognizes him and pulls on her mother's skirt as her Uncle Lee is on TV. She wonders what she is talking about, but when she looks at the TV, she sees when Lee introduced himself to the whole world, albeit reluctantly. This woman is one of his sisters. Later, while cleaning, she gets a call from her and thinks that it was about time one of them called him. Even since the defeat of Ascura, all that appeared on any type of media was his face, so it was only a matter of time before his family found out about this. He gets a few calls from two sisters, and the third one starts calling him also. All of these three sisters are older than him, and they have been close ever since they were young. Well, except him, who was the only boy, and constantly bullied. He doesn't really want to pick up the phone, as they will surely start screaming at him like they usually did. That's when 3 bangs can be heard from the door, and the sisters demand he open it, as they know he is in there. Lee is extremely scared, and the sisters wait eagerly. The one on the left is the first sister, named Yuni. The second one is named Jiyoon, and the third one is Yerim. Grandfell opens the door, and notes that they are being too loud, and the neighbors will consider them nuisances. So first they should calm down, and come inside. They are all surprised by his change, but Yerim is shocked. At another news outlet, Lee is the talk of the town, as he seemingly appeared out of nowhere, and is the one who defeated Ascura accompanied by Jesse Hynesi, someone from the Shining Guild. Despite all of the interviewers trying to get more out of him, he simply said that he is Lee Hoyeol, and left. Cheolman watches all of this while chilling on the couch, and Taemin hands him some hot cocoa, as they deserve it after what happened. Cheolman wonders if Lee will even consider joining their guild, as he has become the talk of the town, and a lot of guilds are surely trying to scout him as they speak. Taemin explains that even this is true, he is still most likely to come to them, as they have his number, and a reason to contact him. The loot they got from the fight with the horsemen in the square was all thanks to him, so it would be quite impolite to not share some with him. Cheolman asks how much he is planning on giving him, but Taemin tells him that is not important. What is that even if they somehow lose him and another guild gets to him first, they need to make sure they leave an everlasting impression. In order to do that, they will give him everything, if they have to. So they should call him, right now. They do just that, but he is busy, as his niece is doing his hair, while his sisters chat. Yuni is the third in the family ranking, and tells him that his new hair color is pretty cool. Jiyoon, who is ranked 4th in the family ranking, starts laughing at him for that, as he looks like one of those K-pop stars. While Yerim, who is 5th in the family ranking, just looks at him, as she finds his tone extremely strange. The niece is ranked 6th, while Lee, who asks them what type of tea they want, is ranked last, 7th. Jiyoon is laughing until tears come out of her eyes, while Yuni notes that he has become much gentler in nature. Yerim says that if he became a player, it means that he was synchronized with his character, right? Lee confirms it, but gets interrupted by his niece, who wants something from him. The sisters look at this sight and thinks of the old days, specifically 10 years ago. Lee knows what's coming, and sure enough, the sisters begin talking about the era when he thought himself as Grandfell, and also dyed his hair white. Lee starts cringing extremely hard and wants them to stop, but they still talk about how he greeted their parents like an aristocrat, which was extremely funny. Yurim looks at him and asks if he is in any type of danger. They were all very surprised when they heard about him, as players get injured all of the time, and he also doesn't pick up his phone at all, so they were extremely worried about him. This makes Lee smile, as even with their constant mocking, in their heart of hearts, they still love him. They also say that he can quit whenever he wants, as they are on his side, always. Lee tries to apologize for worrying them like this, and tell them that he is actually fine, but Grandfell tells them that he, the demon hunter Grandfell Claudi Arpeus Romeo, is plenty suited for the job, so they needn't worry. Lee wonders if he should just end it all, as that was so cringe. He doesn't even know what to say. Later, having finished their tea, they get ready to leave, and Grandfell wishes them farewell, and is looking forward to meeting them again. Yurim remembers that she had to tell him something before leaving, that is to save some money. Lee wonders what saving she is talking about, as he doesn't have any money. But that's when he remembers that he must get the Rupture Clear reward. This is the player's main source of funding, directly from the developers of Arcana. The amount differs a lot, depending on the contribution and difficulty of the rupture. He eagerly checks his account, but blocks the last number with his fingers, and wonders how much it's going to be. 10 or perhaps 20 million won. At the Shining Guild, Camilla bothers Jesse constantly, wanting to know more about Lee, as he seems interesting. Jesse tells her every time that she doesn't know much about him, but Camilla doesn't give up. This makes Jesse emanate a dangerous aura, and tell her that she is focusing on something right now. So, can she be left alone? Camilla gives up, and wonders why she is watching videos on Korea etiquette of all things. Jesse continues watching the video, and a notification telling her that the reward for clearing the rupture was sent. Lee also finds out about the amount of money he was given, and almost faints from shock. 110 billion won was credited to him, which is a lot of cash, but Grandfell finds it annoying that he is so happy over pocket money. The loot that Lee got automatically after killing Ascura was his vampire orb, which is a unique rank cursed item, same as the necklace. Lee from the past would have instantly dissed this item, probably saying that it's trash and undoing the seal is impossible. But well, it can be used as an offering for an exorcism ritual, so even if it's trash, it's befitting for a trash class like his to use it. However, he is different right now, as when he used the necklace imbued with the blood's curse in order to face Count Ascura. At first, he thought that the item would simply vanish from his inventory, but it is still there, and with the curse undone too. His presumption is that the ritual purified the item somehow, but now, he doesn't know what to do, as he has the orb, the necklace, and 100 billion won. Due to all of this sitting on his head, especially the money, he can't get a wink of sleep, as he wonders constantly what to do. Get items, put the money into his savings account, maybe even tell his family about it. Grandfell tells him to think less, as he is trying to sleep, but Lee doesn't stop overthinking, wondering if it would be better to get some equipment since he is going into ruptures, but it would also be an utter waste to get a lot of gear for this level. When he killed Ascura, his level grew by 34, so now he is level 134. He was level 55 literally just a few days ago. So considering the fast rate at which he has been growing, it's not wise to spend like a maniac on things that would be useless in a few weeks. He would like a few mana recovery items, but they are exceedingly rare, and when they go on sale, they are too expensive. Grandfell urges him to get off the phone and rest, as he is hurting his retinas from all of that screen time. Lee tells him to shut up, as he is a millionaire, so he doesn't have to worry about such petty things, right? The next day, at the AAU Korean department, all of the employees are called for a meeting, where someone presents what happened to the knights that Lee defeated, and based on this and some presumptions, it is highly possible that this is alchemy. One of the employees wonders if it is so, while another slams the table and notes that this is utter nonsense. Alchemy couldn't never create such giant columns of rock like that. Nobody could ever hope to have the mana for something like that. Eventually, the meeting falls into just bickering, while the experienced employee watches them as they gnash at each other's throats. He thinks that this is very exhausting, As everyone he goes, literally everybody is talking about this new guy, Lee Hoyeol or whatever. The newbie asks if he knows anything about that guy, but the experienced employee notes that they are in the same situation. If he doesn't know, he has no clue. The newbie explains that in just a few days, his life turned into a nightmare, as everyone, including his friends and family, are asking him to tell them about Lee. Nobody even goes by that name in the Arcana database, so is that his real name, or just an alias to throw reporters off? The experienced employee says that it's Thursday, so when the new update pops up, he's sure that all of this fangirling over one guy will eventually die down. That's when they get information about the new update, and they both stare in awe, as a new region has been added to the world, called the Yusra Archipelago. This place is known to those who played the game in the past, as it was a mystical region, nicknamed the Island of Treasure. Of course, what flew around were only rumors, as nobody was ever able to find it, but it was said that everything living in that place was treasure, so valuable in fact, that it was incomparable with what they have. Such an amazing place will surely bring more life and hope to the world. On the news, there is of course coverage on the new update regarding the Treasure Island, but there is also news about how the Academic Society of Mages will be recontinuing. This Society of Mages, which is a near constant discussion and debate between the most experienced mages, has always helped mages in improving their skills greatly. Lee and Grandfell watch this coverage on the phone, and something more interesting seems to be happening. Jesse, from the Shining Guild, was also one of the invited players, and is entering the tower right this very moment. Grandfell continues to do his pull-ups while watching, and Lee laments that he scolded her about manners, since she is literally the 4th-ranking player in the world. Grandfell doesn't really much care about Lee's annoyances right now, and notes that he is more interested in the Academic Society of Mages. There's also a saying that goes with them: the Tower of the Mages has magic, but not skills. Lee recognizes this quote, as it was written in the description of the Mage's Tower, back when Arcana was still a video game. Grandfell explains that he doesn't know what this society is even about, but he will probably get something out of it if he goes there. Yes, he will do that, right after cleaning the dishes, of course. Lee doesn't even know what to say at this point, so he just lets it go. At the Mage's Tower, countless people gather in the front as they patiently wait for the doors to open. A girl who is affiliated with the Mage's Tower, Cleo, is very happy that the Academic Society is happening once again, as she wonders what kind of things she will learn, and if Marcello, the head mage, will really be presenting his research today. A random person walks backwards while talking with his friends, and doesn't see Cleo, so a crash is about to happen. Cleo, however, remains untouched, and the guy's friends being laughing at him as he ran into a wall. Cleo calls him an idiot, and that's when Jesse comes around, and tells her to not call these people idiots, as this illusionary wall is a spell cast by the Tower Master for the meeting, so it's hard for common people to see through it. Cleo apologizes profusely, noting that indeed, idiots as she says, but the random group look at the wall in awe as they saw Jesse go through it. Cleo explains that she is the guide for this meeting, and is supposed to take anyone who is invited to the Crystal Hall. She is actually the last person here, so she is also going to go in, as nobody else should be coming. Jesse wonders if it is so, and notes that she would like to wait here, just a little while. She has a strange feeling that a certain someone will be coming very soon. Eventually, Grandfell makes his way to the Mage's Tower, and both of them think that each time they come to this place, it is way too crowded. Today especially, there is way too many people, maybe because they are trying to get to Yusra, or maybe even join the Mages Society. That's when someone recognizes him as Lee, and in a short second, he is bombarded with admirers, who ask him for countless things. Both Lee and Grandfell are peeved by this, and think of how to get away, but that's when a random person grabs his bag, and notes that he is a really big fan. If he gives him just one picture with him, he will stop annoying him. Grandfell thinks that this bastard is pulling on something too important, as that bag has his brown rice green tea, which cost 501 per tea bag. This is the only thing he splurged on with his hard-earned cash. Thus, Grandfell tells him to screw off, which shocks Lee, as that may have been too harsh, even if this guy was being quite annoying. But maybe, if he disappoints these people, he will get less attention, so maybe it's for the best. Unfortunately for him, instead of being disappointed, the annoying man starts fangirling even harder, as he got insulted by Lee in real life. More and more people start requesting this, which makes Lee disappointed in the human race. They both think of ways to get out of this debacle, and that's when they see the wall, which seems different. Grandfell starts running towards it with full force, even with other people warning him about it. Sure enough, he almost falls over Cleo after stopping, which makes him note that this is some praiseworthy illusion they got here. Cleo escorts Grandfell up the stairs, and she looks at him sometimes, wondering who he is. All of the people that were invited are definitely already inside, so even if she flips through the invite list countless times, this man is just not here. Grandfell observes her rummaging through the list and asks if there is a problem. Cleo immediately thinks of how she was pinned when they first met, and notes that there is none, as he wanted to attend the meeting. Isn't that right? Grandfell confirms that he does, but Cleo finds it extremely strange that this man could see through the illusion magic, as it was put in place by the Tower Master himself. So just who is he? She continues to blush and stare heavily, which makes Lee wonder if she has a fever or is sick. Grandfell asks if he can't attend without an invitation, and Cleo explains that people who can actually see through the illusion magic are allowed to attend the meeting, even if they did not get an invitation prior. However, he is the first to do such a thing, so she is amazed, and actually really curious about what kind of man he is. In an academic standpoint, of course. Grandfell, again, notes that it's very extraordinary illusion magic, and continues walking, while Lee analyzes the steps they are walking on, thinking that, with enough mana, he could recreate them. Eventually, they arrive at the Crystal Hall, the place of knowledge and inquiry. When Arcana became a reality, the NPCs that were in the game also appeared in real life. The one who is said to have more influence than all of them combined is the youngest head mage, Marcello, who is nicknamed the future successor of the Mage's Tower. He is the fastest, wisest mage there is, and nobody even gets close to his wisdom. The hat on Jessie's head keeps talking and talking about how amazing Marcello is, but she doesn't care in the slightest, which makes the hat angry, as this is some top priority wizard lore. Jessie explains that this whole meeting is making her sleepy, and it's also very boring. Magic, in and of itself, is a skill to her, so inspection and interference, things that are being talked about in this place, are irrelevant to her. She would have just skipped all of this if it wasn't for her dumb class quest, so at least she has to put up with it. Marcello notices her and asks if she is bored. He explains that the tower was summoned to this world for explorers and a myriad of other reasons. However, it wasn't directly summoned and was more part of an interference, what they call a new update, which continues to happen even to this day. He is quite sure that they are not used to their form of magic. It's just like how they have difficulty in understanding science. But in order to figure out what is going on and regain peace in their world, they must work together, no matter what. This actually segues to something he was going to talk about: science. He has figured out a possibility in science to further develop their magic. He creates a small ball of flame and notes that this is fusion, which is basically ignition created by joining magic and science together. Even if this is an entirely new development, they must approach it carefully. They do not know what kind of things will happen when combining two entirely different things. Jessie is now quite interested in the lecture, as it has caught her attention. But that's when Marcello notes that because of this discovery, he needs their help. Everyone at the lecture thinks that this is a quest of some sorts, and Marcello says that if anyone has any questions, they should feel free to ask. Grandfell is the first to raise his hand, and explains that there are quite a few unnecessities in his inspection he showed earlier, and would like his opinion on the matter. Everyone is surprised that he would actually question the head mage, while Jessie is glad that he is here, as she knew that he would come. The council on the other side starts sweating, and most sigh, as Marcello isn't the calm sort, so things are about to get out of hand real quick. Marcello stares at him, and asks why he thinks that way. Grandfell begins explaining that it is quite simple. He just feels the estrangement. Science and magic are entirely different concepts, each with their own rules, so there are unnecessities because estrangement occurs in the process of their combination. He experiences something similar while combining skills and magic. He creates the same thing that Marcello created, which shocks him to his core, as it took him months to just activate that magic. But he just did it in an instant. And how can this man experience estrangement, considering that he is an explorer? Everyone in the hall experiences the same shock that Marcello felt, and that's when they notice that this man is Lee Hoyeol. Grandfell explains that using centrifugal force actually improves the effectiveness, and even if it is a bit lacking at the moment, it is not a bad result. Lee notes that the default ignition for this used up tons of mana, which he didn't want to waste, so he is using centrifugal force, which made things much more easier. Grandfell thinks that it was a good choice to come here, and brandishes his very happy face, which makes people think that he's sneering, meaning that this must be child's play to him. At first, Marcello seems defeated by this level of development, but with newfound confidence, he asks Lee to join him in his research, as it would greatly improve and hasten it. This comes in the form of a quest, which Grandfell accepts instantly, as he is very happy. Yet his face makes it seem like he has defeated Marcello, and is now reveling in the glory. In the Yusra archipelago, Leonie and her guild arrive, but she isn't too happy, as it is way too crowded for her liking. One of the members kisses her on the cheek, as she finds her annoyance very cute, while another member notices that, even though he anticipated for this place to be crowded, with reporters and such, there are also a lot of Arcanians in here, which are the NPCs. Among them, there are the Lionheart Knights, the Shadow Mercenary Troops, and even the Explorer Alliance. Another member notes that this place is known as a treasure island, so of course, even the NPCs would be interested in it. That's when Leonie's phone rings, and it's one of her members, who attended the meeting. She explains that Lee was also there, and told the head magic that his magic was flawed. This makes Leonie laughs reel from the laughter, noting that the guy is a real psycho. The mage continues explaining that Marcello actually admitted to that, and even gave him a quest. Somewhere in the mage's tower, Marcello asks Grandfell to write anything he needs for the research, as he will do his utmost to obtain them. Both Grandfell and Lee are happy about this, as they can use this to their advantage. Eventually, Marcello is summoned to the top floor of the mage's tower, and the 5 stars of the tower berate him for inviting an explorer to work with them, as this violates their rules. But why would a mage even do something like this? Marcello explains that Lee is someone who perfectly understands magic, and he also overcame the gap between magic and science, something which he struggled with for months. His talents can't be wasted, as they can improve the world greatly, which is needed right now. The 5 stars tell him that mages should act on their own, and take responsibility in their own hands. They will respect his judgment for now, but he should remember that eventually, he will need to take responsibility for it. With that, he is excused, and Marcello laments having to work under these boomer bastards, as they refuse help from outside sources out of pride, which will hurt them in the long run. Cleo comes from behind him, and notes that she is on her way to pick up the items that Lee requested. Marcello says that if it's so, she should give that to him, as he was headed there anyways, as he had something to check. Cleo is quite confused, but accepts nonetheless. Eventually, Marcello presents Grandfell with the items he and Lee requested, items that improve mana regeneration, and the various magic texts he wanted. He asks if he likes them, but Grandfell laments even seeing them, as they are all too high level for him. He tells Marcello that these are not fit for somebody like him, quite literally in fact, which surprises Marcello, but he somewhat expected this. He apologizes for underestimating him, as he was curious why he requested mana regeneration items, but he probably already knew about this item. He hands him a hexagram brooch, which seems to be part of a 6-piece set. It is a level 100 item, which regenerates mana by 10% when magic is used. Lee thinks that this is exactly the type of item he wanted, as it improves his abilities greatly. Marcello notes that he realized he is an amazing mage when he found the unnecessities in his magic, but to think he also knew about this item, truly amazing. Lee wonders what's so great about this low-level and rather simple item, while Grandfell stares at Marcello. He explains that, unfortunately, they cannot carry out the proper research, as he needs to fix his magic. The quest's updates, telling him to wait for Marcello to call. Grandfell notes that he will wait for him to overcome himself, and Marcello thanks him once again, while thinking that, if it's with him, he might be able to change how the mage's tower works. On the new archipelago, Huigang sits around while streaming, which seems to be watched by 19,000 people. He explains that he is waiting for Lee to get to Yusra using the portal, and shows that there are countless people entering, so he believes that Lee will also be coming soon enough. The stream is tired of waiting, but Huigang tells them to be patient. A player overhears him talking about Lee, and gets up close and personal to the stream. They recognize him as Kinver, who seems very angry that Lee is getting so much attention. This man is a part of the Supernova Guild, a group which is infamous for doing whatever they have to in order to complete their objectives, and Kinver is rumored to be the most evil of them all, as he is tied to many missing people cases. He tells Hwaigang to tell Lee that he shouldn't go overboard with his clown act. With that, he leaves, noting that he will keep a close eye on his stream to make sure he completes his objective. This whole thing makes the chat wonder